In recent years, mindfulness has become a global commodity. With a smartphone in hand and a pair of earbuds, anyone can access thousands of meditation apps promising calm, clarity, better sleep, and even happiness, often in just 5 or 10 minutes a day. At first glance, this seems like a remarkable achievement, ancient contemplative practices distilled into sleek interfaces. Available anytime, anywhere. Yet beneath this polished surface lies a fundamental problem. Much of modern, app-based mindfulness resembles fast food for the mind, convenient, instantly gratifying, and ultimately unsatisfying. Meditation apps are designed for speed and ease. They cater to short attention spans and busy schedules, offering quick relief from stress rather than a deep transformation of how one relates to experience. Like fast food, they are engineered to be appealing, soothing voices, pleasant background music, gentle affirmations, and carefully timed reminders. These elements can indeed create a temporary sense of relaxation. But just as a fast food meal may leave the body nourished only superficially, app-based mindfulness often leaves the mind calm only at the surface level. The core issue is not that these apps are harmful, but that they are incomplete. They present mindfulness as a technique to be consumed, rather than a discipline to be cultivated. In traditional contemplative paths, mindfulness is never isolated, it is embedded within a larger framework of ethical conduct, mental training, and wisdom. Without this context, mindfulness becomes a tool for symptom management rather than a path of genuine understanding. What is most strikingly absent from many modern mindfulness apps is depth. Depth requires time, patience, and a willingness to stay with discomfort. True mindfulness is not always pleasant. It involves observing restlessness, boredom, anxiety, and craving without immediately trying to escape them. Apps, however, often promise the opposite: quick calm, instant relief, and a return to comfort. When discomfort arises, users are encouraged to switch sessions, shorten practices, or seek a more pleasant meditation. This subtly reinforces the very habits mindfulness is meant to reveal: avoidance, craving, and resistance. Closely related to this lack of depth is the absence of discipline. Traditional meditation paths emphasize regular practice, gradual training, and commitment over long periods of time. Discipline does not mean harshness or rigidity, it means continuity. It means returning to the practice even when it feels dull, difficult, or unrewarding. Apps, by contrast, are built around motivation hacks, streaks, badges, daily goals, and cheerful reminders. While these features can help beginners get started, they also risk turning meditation into another productivity task or self-improvement game. When motivation fades or rewards stop feeling novel, practice often collapses. Perhaps the most significant loss is the misunderstanding of calm itself. Many apps equate mindfulness with relaxation, presenting calm as the ultimate goal. Yet in deeper contemplative traditions, calm is not an end but a condition, a stable platform from which insight can arise. Genuine calm is not something imposed on the mind. It emerges naturally when the mind understands its own patterns. Without insight, calm remains fragile. It disappears as soon as conditions change, stress returns, or life becomes challenging. This is why many app users report feeling relaxed during a session, only to find themselves overwhelmed again minutes later. There is also a subtle but important shift in intention. Modern mindfulness apps are often marketed as tools to help individuals perform better, sleep faster, work harder, or cope more efficiently with demanding lifestyles. In this sense, mindfulness is used to adapt the mind to stressful conditions, rather than to question the causes of stress themselves. The deeper purpose of mindfulness, to see clearly how suffering arises and how it can end, is quietly replaced by a more convenient goal: functioning better within the same patterns. Yet this critique is not meant to dismiss mindfulness apps entirely. They can serve as an introduction, a doorway for those who might never encounter contemplative practice otherwise. The danger arises when the doorway is mistaken for the destination. When mindfulness is reduced to a consumable experience, its transformative potential is lost. Beyond the app lies a more profound alternative. This alternative does not promise instant peace or effortless happiness. Instead, it invites a radical shift in how one relates to thoughts, emotions, and identity itself. It emphasizes sustained attention, ethical sensitivity, and the courage to look deeply into experience as it is. Calm, in this context, is not manufactured but discovered. It's stable not because life is controlled, but because the mind no longer clings. In a world obsessed with speed and convenience, this path may seem demanding, even unattractive. But it offers something no app can provide, not just moments of relief, but a lasting freedom rooted in understanding. To understand meditation as the Buddha originally taught it, one must step beyond modern interpretations and return to its earliest textual foundations. Beneath layers of later commentary, cultural adaptation, and contemporary reinterpretation lies a remarkably precise and practical blueprint preserved in the Pāli Canon, the oldest surviving record of the Buddha's teachings. This ancient collection does not present meditation as a vague philosophy or a relaxation technique, but as a carefully articulated path designed to transform the human mind at its deepest level. The Pāli Canon emerged from an oral tradition that valued accuracy, repetition, and direct experience. Long before meditation was associated with self-care or stress reduction, it was understood as a disciplined investigation into the nature of suffering and freedom. The Buddha's instructions were not abstract theories, they were experiential maps. Each teaching was meant to be tested in lived experience, not merely admired or believed. To journey into the Pāli Canon is therefore not an exercise in historical curiosity, but an invitation to rediscover meditation as a living practice with a clear purpose. Central to this rediscovery is the language itself. Pāli is not just a medium through which the teachings were transmitted, it is a functional language of practice. Many key terms that are loosely translated in modern discourse carry precise meanings that shape how meditation is understood and applied. When these meanings are overlooked, the practice subtly but significantly changes. Take the word sati, commonly translated as mindfulness. In its original context, sati does not mean merely paying attention or being aware of the present moment. It means remembering to stay aligned with reality, to keep in mind what is skillful and what is not. Sati functions together with panna, or wisdom, and samadhi, or collectedness of mind. Separated from these companions, mindfulness loses its direction. Within the Pāli framework, it is not passive awareness, but an active, discerning presence that observes without clinging. Another essential term is dukkha, often reduced to suffering. In the Pāli Canon, dukkha refers not only to pain or dissatisfaction, but to the fundamental instability of all conditioned experience. Meditation, in this light, is not a search for pleasant states, but a direct encounter with impermanence. It trains the mind to see clearly how attachment to what is unstable inevitably leads to unease. This insight cannot be gained through intellectual understanding alone, it must be realized through sustained observation. Equally important is the concept of bhavana, usually translated as meditation or mental development. Bhavana implies cultivation, growth, and gradual maturation. The mind is not forced into stillness, nor manipulated into positivity. Instead, it is trained patiently, much like a field is cultivated over time. This stands in sharp contrast to modern expectations of quick results. In the Buddha's blueprint, transformation unfolds through consistent practice and deepening understanding, not through shortcuts. The Pāli Canon also presents meditation as inseparable from ethical living. Terms such as sila, moral conduct, are not optional preliminaries, but foundational supports. Without ethical sensitivity, the mind remains agitated and fragmented, incapable of sustained clarity. This integration of ethics, concentration, and wisdom forms a coherent system rather than a collection of techniques. Each element reinforces the others, creating conditions for genuine insight to arise. What makes the Pāli path especially powerful is its practicality. The Buddha repeatedly emphasized that his teachings were meant to be directly known by the wise for themselves. Meditation instructions in the canon are often simple, even austere, yet they point toward profound realizations. Observing the breath, the body, feelings, and mental states is not an end in itself, but a method for dismantling deeply rooted habits of identification. Through careful observation, the meditator begins to see that thoughts, emotions, and sensations arise and pass according to conditions. Nothing within this flow can rightly be called a permanent self. This realization marks the beginning of true freedom. When experience is no longer taken personally, the mind loosens its grip. Calm deepens, not because life becomes predictable, but because the mind understands its own nature. This is the transformative experience. The Pāli path sets the stage for one that is tangible, irreversible, and grounded in direct seeing. Unearthing the Pāli path is therefore not about returning to the past, but about reclaiming clarity. In a time when meditation is often diluted into a lifestyle accessory, the Buddha's original blueprint offers a radical alternative, a path that does not promise comfort, but delivers liberation. When people hear the word meditation, they often imagine a single, narrow practice, sitting quietly, eyes closed, following the breath. While awareness of breathing is indeed a foundational method, in the Buddha's teaching, the meditative path preserved in the Pāli Canon is far richer and more nuanced. It offers a range of carefully articulated techniques, each designed to cultivate deep calm, clarity, and insight in different conditions of mind. To go beyond the breath is not to abandon simplicity, but to discover how ancient methods address the mind in its many moods, without dependence on technology or external guidance. Among the most fundamental of these methods is Ānāpānasati, mindfulness of breathing. In its original Pāli context, this practice is far more than casually noticing the inhale and exhale. The Buddha described it as a complete training that integrates awareness of the body, feelings, mental states, and mental phenomena. The breath functions as an anchor, but the true work lies in observing how attention stabilizes, how joy and calm arise, and how impermanence becomes unmistakably clear. When practiced steadily, Ānāpānasati leads naturally toward deep collectedness, samadhi, not through force, but through understanding. Equally central, yet often misunderstood, is Mettā bhavana, the cultivation of loving-kindness. In modern settings, loving-kindness is sometimes presented as a feel-good exercise or an emotional uplift. In the Pāli Canon, however, metta is a rigorous mental training that counters ill will, fear, and self-centeredness. It begins with a sincere wish for well-being, not as a sentimental affirmation, but as a deliberate orientation of the mind away from hostility. As metta deepens, the heart softens, and the mind becomes naturally calm and unified. This calm is stable because it is rooted in non-harming, not in suppression. These practices are not isolated techniques, they function within a coherent system. When agitation dominates the mind, metta provides warmth and safety. When dullness or distraction arises, Ānāpānasati restores clarity and balance. The Buddha's genius lay in offering methods that respond to mental conditions rather than imposing a single formula. Deep calm emerges not from rigid adherence, but from skillful adjustment grounded in awareness. One of the greatest misconceptions about ancient meditation practices is that they require extreme discipline, monastic life, or extraordinary talent. In reality, the Pāli teachings were addressed to people from all walks of life: farmers, merchants, householders, and rulers. The instructions are practical because they are rooted in ordinary experience. Breathing happens naturally. Feelings arise constantly. Intentions shape every action. Meditation simply brings these processes into clear view. Integrating these practices into daily life does not require an app, a timer, or a guided voice. It requires continuity and intention. Ānāpānasati can be practiced while walking, standing, or even during routine activities, by gently returning attention to the rhythm of breathing whenever the mind wanders. Short moments of recollection, repeated throughout the day, gradually train the mind toward stability. What matters is not duration, but consistency. Similarly, metta can be cultivated in everyday interactions. When irritation arises, one can silently recall a simple phrase of goodwill. When meeting others, one can notice the intention behind words and actions. Over time, this transforms not only formal meditation, but the texture of daily life. The mind learns to respond rather than react, and calm becomes a natural byproduct of wise engagement. Another persistent myth is that ancient practices are inaccessible because they are tied to unfamiliar languages or cultural contexts. While the Pāli terms may sound foreign, the experiences they point to are universal. Restlessness, anger, craving, and fear are not ancient phenomena, they are human ones. The techniques address these directly, without requiring belief or blind faith. They ask only for observation, honesty, and patience. Deep calm, in the Buddha's teaching, is not a trance or an escape from life. It is a collectedness that allows the mind to remain steady amid change. When one sees clearly how experiences arise and pass, clinging loosens, and peace follows naturally. This calm does not depend on perfect conditions or guided sessions. It is portable, resilient, and grounded in understanding. To go beyond the breath, then, is to rediscover meditation as a living skill rather than a scripted experience. The Pāli techniques offer not complexity, but precision. They remind us that profound calm is not hidden in apps or special settings, but available wherever awareness meets experience, moment by moment. When meditation is discussed, its benefits are often framed in modest, measurable terms: reduced stress, improved focus, better sleep. While these outcomes are valuable, they barely hint at the deeper impact that sustained practice rooted in the Pāli tradition can have on a human life. The methods preserved in the Pāli canon were never intended to offer temporary relief from pressure. They were designed to transform how the mind meets experience. When practiced consistently, their effects ripple outward, subtle at first, then unmistakable, touching not only inner states, but relationships, decisions, and the way one stands in the world. Those who commit to Pāli-based practice often describe a shift that is difficult to capture in simple metrics. Rather than dramatic emotional highs, they speak of a quiet, pervasive peace. This peace is not dependent on circumstances being favorable. It remains present during uncertainty, conflict, and loss. Practitioners frequently recount moments when situations that once triggered anxiety or anger now pass with surprising ease. The mind still registers difficulty, but it no longer collapses under it. This resilience is not cultivated through positive thinking or emotional suppression, but through repeated, direct observation of experience as it arises and passes away. Anecdotal accounts from long-term practitioners reveal a common theme: the gradual erosion of reactivity. One may notice that anger arises more slowly, or that it dissipates more quickly when it does appear. Another may observe that fear no longer dominates decision-making. Still others speak of a growing sense of spaciousness and inner room that allows thoughts and emotions to move freely without being mistaken for a self. These changes are often subtle, unfolding over months or years, yet their cumulative effect is profound. Life feels less like a struggle to be managed and more like a process to be understood. What distinguishes the benefits of Pāli practice from many modern approaches is their durability. Temporary relief comes from altering conditions, calming music, guided instructions, or controlled environments. When these supports are removed, the calm often disappears. Pāli methods, by contrast, cultivate wisdom, panna, which changes the relationship to conditions themselves. Through careful observation, practitioners learn to see impermanence not as an idea, but as a lived reality. Pleasant experiences fade. Unpleasant ones also fade. When this truth is seen repeatedly and clearly, attachment loosens. Calm becomes stable because it is grounded in understanding, not in control. This wisdom expresses itself in everyday life in tangible ways. Decisions become less impulsive, shaped more by clarity than by craving or fear. Relationships soften, as the need to defend an identity or prove a point weakens. Even in moments of failure or disappointment, there is less self-blame and more curiosity. The mind learns to ask, "What is happening here?" rather than "Why is this happening to me?" This shift alone can transform how one navigates modern pressures. In a world defined by speed, uncertainty, and constant stimulation, the relevance of ancient Pāli practices becomes strikingly clear. Modern challenges, digital overload, chronic stress, polarized views, and fragile mental health are symptoms of a deeper issue, a mind that has lost the ability to stay with experience without grasping or resisting. The Buddha's methods address this at the root. They do not attempt to slow the world down, they train the mind to remain steady within it. Practitioners often report that the benefits extend beyond formal meditation. While waiting in traffic, facing deadlines, or engaging in difficult conversations, the same principles apply: awareness of bodily sensations, recognition of mental states, and non-identification with passing thoughts. This continuity is what creates the ripple effect. Inner clarity influences speech, action, and intention, which in turn shape the environment one inhabits. Importantly, this practice does not require withdrawal from society. The Pāli Canon includes countless examples of lay practitioners who integrated deep wisdom into ordinary lives. The goal is not escape, but engagement without entanglement. When the mind understands its own patterns, it can participate fully without being overwhelmed. The ripple effect of Pāli practice is ultimately a shift from seeking comfort to cultivating understanding. Temporary relief may soothe the surface, but wisdom transforms the current beneath. In a time hungry for quick fixes, the ancient path offers something rarer and more enduring, a way of living that meets modern challenges with depth, balance, and unshakable calm. Every meaningful transformation begins not with a dramatic breakthrough, but with a quiet decision. After exploring what authentic calm truly means and how it differs from the fleeting relief offered by surface-level practices, the question naturally arises: where does this understanding lead? The answer is simple, yet demanding. Your journey begins now, in this very moment, with the willingness to take one sincere step. Authentic calm is not something to be acquired or added to an already crowded life. It is revealed through a shift in how you relate to your own experience. The first step does not require special equipment, perfect conditions, or hours of uninterrupted time. It requires intention. Begin by choosing a small, consistent practice that you can return to every day. Set aside a modest period, 10 or 15 minutes is enough, and commit to it not as a self-improvement task, but as an act of curiosity. Sit comfortably, allow the body to settle, and gently bring attention to the natural rhythm of breathing. When the mind wanders, notice it without judgment and return. This simple act, repeated patiently, is the seed from which authentic calm grows. What matters most at the beginning is not technique, but attitude. Let go of expectations about immediate peace or profound experiences. Calm is not something you force into existence. It emerges when the mind stops fighting itself. Treat each session as an opportunity to learn how the mind behaves, how it grasps, resists, and drifts. This honest observation is already a form of wisdom. Even moments of restlessness or distraction are not failures, they are the practice revealing itself. As this initial commitment takes root, it becomes important to deepen understanding and connection. Authentic calm thrives within a supportive context. Seek out resources that honor the depth of the original teachings rather than simplifying them into slogans. Carefully chosen translations of the Pāli Canon, teachings from experienced practitioners, and structured courses grounded in traditional frameworks can provide clarity and direction. These resources help prevent common misunderstandings and offer guidance when challenges arise. Equally valuable is community. Practicing in isolation can easily lead to doubt or stagnation. Connecting with others who share a sincere interest in authentic practice creates encouragement and accountability. This may take the form of local meditation groups, online forums dedicated to Pāli-based teachings, or retreats that emphasize disciplined yet accessible practice. A community does not exist to compare progress or chase experiences, but to remind each other of what truly matters: clarity, integrity, and continuity. As your practice matures, you may notice a subtle but significant change. Calm begins to appear not only during meditation, but in the spaces between activities. You may find yourself pausing before reacting, listening more fully, or recognizing tension before it escalates. These are signs that practice is moving beyond form and into life. At this stage, meditation is no longer something you do, it becomes a way of being attentive and present within ordinary moments. This is also where the temptation of superficiality often returns. Quick fixes, polished promises, and effortless solutions can seem appealing, especially when progress feels slow. Yet authentic calm asks for something deeper, patience and courage. It invites you to stay with the process, even when it challenges your habits and assumptions. True tranquility is not an escape from discomfort, but the capacity to meet it without being undone. Now is the time to choose depth over convenience. To move beyond practices that merely soothe the surface and commit to a path that transforms from within. This choice does not require abandoning modern life or rejecting technology outright. It requires discernment, knowing what supports genuine understanding and what merely distracts. The call to action is clear and personal. Begin where you are. Practice regularly. Learn wisely. Connect sincerely. And most importantly, trust that authentic calm is not a distant ideal reserved for a few, but a natural capacity of the human mind when it is trained with care and insight. Your journey does not start someday, when conditions are perfect. It starts now, with this breath, this moment, and the simple decision to look deeply rather than skim the surface. In doing so, you step beyond superficial tranquility and into a calm that is real, resilient, and enduring.